So because the government in New Mexico cannot protect victims of crime, the governor has decided to make it illegal for people to be allowed to protect themselves from crime. Or at least so goes the reasoning when on September 9th, the New Mexico governor, Democrat Michelle Grisham, declared a public health emergency specifically aimed at stopping people from carrying firearms legally with a fine of up to $5,000. Did the governor break the law by doing this? Did she commit a crime? We have a lot of insanity and analysis, plus some updates to cover. So buckle up, bucko. Let's get into it. So what happened here? Here's the super short version, is that tragically some children lost their life, and they did not lose their lives to concealed carriers carrying lawfully acquired guns in lawful places with lawful concealed carry licenses. Just the opposite. They lost their lives to criminals doing criminal things with illegal guns that they illegally acquired. Well, apparently to the governor, the good guys are the problem. Enter the governor's new public health emergency declaration that lasts 30 days. The governor said that the 30-day suspension enacted as an emergency public health measure would apply in most public places, from city sidewalks to parks. Violators could face civil penalties and a fine of up to $5,000. Under the order, residents can still transport guns to some private locations, that's very kind of her, such as a gun range or a gun store, but, and this is a fun kicker, the firearm has to have a trigger lock or some other container or mechanism that makes it impossible to use, like, say, in self-defense. Now look, really quickly, as an ex-prosecutor and criminal defense attorney, I've had the sordid pleasure of speaking with a lot of the rougher types, we'll call them the frequent flyers of the American justice system. I have never once heard of a gang member say, "Hey, get me one of those trigger locks while you're there." Not once. Likewise, I've never seen a case where someone was involved in a shootout, they committed an armed robbery, a burglary, a rape or murder or anything like that, and the cops find the gun and it had a trigger lock on it, or a trigger lock laying next to it. I'm obviously preaching to the choir here, but this is insane. Moreover, if you're going to be shooting people or committing any crime, punishable by oftentimes years and maybe even decades behind bars, let alone tens of thousands or sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars in fines, do you really think that a $5,000 ticket is going to serve as deterrence? Of course not, because this isn't about deterrence to the bad people. It's about you. It's about me. It's about the Second Amendment. It's about connecting guns to public health laws and regulations as a first step. And once done, you can begin to regulate so-called gun crime, the same as COVID or Ebola. Isolate and destroy. And of course, the usual talking points have emerged, as they always do. Quote, "If it saves one life, then it's worth doing," end quote, said Miranda Viscoli, co-president of the New Mexicans to Prevent Gun Violence. Of course, by that logic, we should absolutely be banning lawnmowers, ladders, swimming pools, and the act of autoerotic asphyxiation, which for some disturbing reason is making, I think, its third reference and appearance on this channel. Because do you know what all those have in common? They all kill more people each year in America than those scary AR-15s do. And we know how evil those are. See our video, by the way, if you want to go into more in depth about that at the end of this video, linked about how statistically safe AR-15s are for more details. So Miranda Viscoli, co-president of New Mexicans to Prevent Gun Violence, let's not pretend that this is about saving lives. If it is, then pick up a shovel and start closing some pools. Also, I cannot help but notice that I am far from alone in thinking that this will do nothing to halt violence, whether gun violence or violence of any other kind. The sheriff in Bernalillo County just happens to agree with me. Quote, "This ban does nothing to curb gun violence," end quote, the sheriff in a press conference said, held on 9/11, and he also went on to make it crystal clear that he did not believe that stripping people of their gun rights to carry firearms will make anyone safer. Quote, "This order will not do anything to curb gun violence other than to punish law-abiding citizens from the constitutional right to self-defense," end quote. The mere presence of a firearm does not cause gun crime. If it did, then rural America with the highest rates of firearm ownership in the United States will be a virtual post-apocalyptic war zone, while cities that have, by contrast, the absolute lowest rates of firearm ownership should be comparative utopias. Now, obviously, that's a very condensed, unfair, and unnuanced take that leaves a ton out, and I'm not going to try to pretend that it doesn't and that it is fair. But by the same token, I think you also follow the point there. There's a degree of truth to that point. The sheriff also went on to say that he cannot enforce the order on constitutional grounds. Quote, "It's unconstitutional, so there's no way we can enforce that order," end quote. And by the way, he's also not alone, in case you think he's some sort of wingnut or activist or just a hack with a badge who got voted into office. He's joined by many other politicians and leaders, all of whom that at least I could sort out were actually Democrat. Bernalillo County District Attorney Sam Bregman, who once served as Democratic Party leader and was appointed by Governor Grisham, the same governor who issued this order, actually joined Albuquerque Mayor Tim Keller and Police Chief Harold Medina, and I apologize if I mispronounced any of those names, saying that they would not enforce the order. Quote, "As an officer of the court, I cannot and will not enforce something that is clearly unconstitutional," said Bregman, the top prosecutor, and this is for the Albuquerque area. Quote, "This office will continue to focus on criminals of any age that use guns in the commission of a crime," end quote. That's fair. That doesn't seem political to me. Even, and get this, noted constitutional scholar David Hogg stood up for the Second Amendment and said on Twitter that he was against this public health order. He's against it. Right, this is one of the national faces in the movement for gun control and being anti-Second Amendment. Governor, when you force me to utter the phrase, "I agree with David Hogg," you know that you are out on a long, weak, and unconstitutional limb. I also want to tie this quickly into a seemingly unrelated move that has been highly political, and that it's a topic called qualified immunity. Qualified immunity is the liability shield that prevents folks who have had their rights violated by law enforcement from suing the individual officers involved who allegedly committed those acts, those violations. It's more complicated than that, but that's the gist to it. This has been another political wrestling match and tug of war, with the right wanting to keep it and the left wanting to end it. Well, a little over 2 years ago on April 9th, 2021, qualified immunity ended in New Mexico, which at the time made it the second state to do so after Colorado. Whether quiet or out loud, this is an interesting point where the sides seem to have reversed themselves in the issue. Because believe me, there is a 100% chance that behind closed doors, the members of law enforcement in New Mexico are absolutely discussing the fact that they could be sued if they make an arrest or issue a ticket under this public health emergency order. To a normal officer, does that sound like a risk that they want to take? Would it be one that you would want to take? I guess the answer to that was no, since there was, in fact, a peaceful demonstration against this emergency order by the governor, with a lot of folks marching while openly carrying and displaying firearms. To my knowledge, please contact me on the channel if I'm wrong, but to my knowledge, no one was ticketed or arrested as a result of this. So it seems that law enforcement, at least thus far, has spoken loudly with their thundering silence in the streets, as well as their leaders at the podium. Now, a lot of you have contacted me to ask, is this a crime? Let's just take a quick look at two different pieces of federal code. First, 18 U.S.C. Section 242, deprivation of rights under color of law. From the Department of Justice, this provision, we're talking about Section 242, makes it a crime for someone acting under the color of law, in other words, using the law, to willfully deprive a person of a right or privilege protected by the Constitution or laws of the United States. Defendants act under color of law when they wield power vested by a government entity and have included police officers, prosecutors, judges, and other officials in years past. A violation can occur if you violate someone's rights as codified by the Constitution, statute, or case law, or in this case, conveniently, all three. Secondly, and I did get a lot of emails about both, sits 18 U.S.C. Section 241, which deals with conspiracy against rights. I won't go into this too much because this often is typically used in connection, in my experience and in my research, with human trafficking cases and things like that. And candidly, I would need to look into this more, but it strikes me just right off the cuff as being a little bit of a stretch. Well, what the governor is doing certainly seems to fit the bill here for 18 U.S.C. Section 242, let's be realistic. She isn't going to be arrested. If she were, it would have already been done. It simply is not going to happen for a lot of reasons that frankly go beyond the scope of this video. So for now, I'm just going to park it and leave it there. Now, at the time of filming, at least 4 lawsuits have already been filed, and I've actually already been in touch with Gun Owners of America, fantastic organization. Be sure to check them out if you've not already done so, along with Firearms Policy Coalition and others. If you want me to go in and start unpacking these lawsuits, let me know in the comment field below. I absolutely do mine that for information about what do you want. Otherwise, I'm just sitting in a reasonably dark room talking to a lens about 2 yards or so away. So you let me know if you like things by not only, of course, reaching out to the channel, but by commenting and clicking the like button, because the like button also tells me, hey, this topic is something that I should be doing more about. Here's the bottom line. In the courtroom, you have close calls and you have clear calls. This is neither of those. This is approaching biblically bad as far as easy calls go in cases like this. This is Adam, don't bite that apple bad. This is an open rebellion from law enforcement across your state bad. This is your political appointees from the same party are telling you no bad. This is the Second Amendment attorney siding with David Hogg bad. And that's a special level of bad. This is a major flashpoint in the war over Second Amendment rights, directly up there with questions that we're seeing fought out in courts from coast to coast, such as, but by no means limited to, how are magazines and accessories to be regulated and protected? Are they part of the Second Amendment? Questions about so-called assault weapons, aka modern sporting rifles. This is not only who and where can you carry a firearm, this is also about whether the government can simply pause the Constitution. What do you think? Now keep in mind, if the governor prevails on this, what is to stop her and others of her kind from expanding this across the United States? A political party from another state has already tweeted their support. Do you think politicians from coast to coast are looking at this? And to include, of course, other fundamental rights as well, not just the Second Amendment, to suspend your Fourth Amendment rights, to suspend your rights about needing enough evidence to be arrested, time limits for detention, freedom of speech, freedom of religion. And lastly, before I get to the quote today, I want to make it emphatically clear that while the obvious and massive threat to the Second Amendment, which is what we're talking about right now, currently comes from the left side of the aisle, don't confuse me for some sort of cheerleader here. The Second Amendment and other rights have rarely been safe in the hands of both parties. Where they are safe is in your hands, but only if you take the responsibility and ownership for making it safe. And that's part of what I see as part of the mission for this channel, what I'm trying to change. People with a thirst for power, whether coming from the left or the right, will watch things like this to decide what kind of tactics they can use in the future to move against you. Here's my quote of the day, a Native American indigenous people proverb, quote, "Never follow a leader who is more in love with power than people." Thanks for sticking around this long. I look forward to reading your comments in this one. We'll see you in the next one. Thanks for sticking around to the end of the video. If you enjoyed this one, please feel free to check out some of our other great content, and we'll see you in the next one.